5 years now, I've wanted to see the subject of the Gimli Glider on the wall. And this year, finally, at the beginning of June, I was able to make it possible with the support of the club. And the only artist that I wanted to ever paint this was Dave McNabb, because of his style of painting. So we've been on a 6-week odyssey that now has taken us to having the crew from the plane invited to come out and unveil it. We found the 3 boys that they've never met in 25 years. So 2 of them will be here, and one of the bikes of the boy that's not here will be here for the unveiling. And we're just going to have a really great day in Gimli, because now it's gone far and wide and we're expecting a huge crowd. 11 o'clock in the morning we're starting with a press conference, of course, with Dave and the crew. A parade is going to be leaving at 6 in Centre, and that will include 6 pipers that have volunteered to come to from Winnipeg to escort them down to the water. To this bandstand here, and then they'll be escorted out onto the dock here, and the unveiling will take place after the speeches at 2 o'clock. And then after that, we've got a whole memorabilia display.
3 boys were out on the runway when the plane came in. They couldn't hear it, of course, because the motors were down, the engines. And one of them looked around and saw the thing coming behind them, and they quickly got out of the way. Of course, the captain was really worried about them being in front of me. He didn't have a horn, so he couldn't warn them. And I think on Wednesday, these 2 fellas will be coming back.
Impacted with all this and the mural that's going to be in tribute to them that Dave's doing. We have a flashlight, and he couldn't believe that I had his flashlight from the father of one of the boys. And I said, that's because I lived in Winnipeg, but my mother phoned me right away, and they were on the golf course. And they looked up, they didn't hear it because there was no fuel. They looked up, and all of a sudden they see a plane parked on the runway just off the fifth hole. And she said they just couldn't believe that all of a sudden there's this huge passenger jet right there in front of them, and when did it land? And you hear a lot of stories like that. That's why the boys couldn't hear them coming in, because there was no engine noise. And they only were aware of something once the shadow overtook them. And meanwhile, the pilot sees them, and he knows that they're going to come to harm unless they are aware of him, because he can't stop that huge plane, and they're on the runway. And so they turned around, and they did see him, and they started to pedal furiously.
I'm Ron Hall, and I'm with the Gimli Air Base Historical Society. Peter Bjornson's class, when he was a teacher here, he had the students do a diorama or a model of this accident scene, and they have done a marvelous job of it, with the nose wheel crashed and everything. So there's the runway, there's the barrier.
Well, one of the problems is there's a lot of detail to go into it. So if I paint them first and get all the shadows in on them and so on, and the green goes over top of it, it's very difficult to mix the colors to come back to the same one to fix it. Whereas if I do all the background first and then a little bit goes where I don't want it to, I can get out the primer, fix it up, and then paint the guys after.
See, you got your birds in there now.
This is Carrie and this is Art. They're two of the small boys.
Kids that age, 14-year-olds, and Carrie was 11. You don't have the common sense at that age to have a good sense of fear about anything. And we were unlike any other 14-year-old, so we just looked at it and said, "Hey, that's cool." And it rolled in, it ground to a stop. The smoke and flames were coming out of the nose, and the emergency doors popped open and the chutes came down and people were heaving themselves out of the aircraft, and that's when we figured out, that's when reality snapped in even to our 14-year-old brains and said, hey, we shouldn't be here, we need to get out of here, and we need to let people know what had happened, because it came in suddenly.
On behalf of the Gimli Art Club, I would like to welcome Captain Robert Pearson, co-pilot Maurice Cottrell, and the whole crew and their families. We are thrilled to have you back to celebrate the 25th anniversary of such a dramatic event.
It was just 6 short weeks ago that Barb Gluck sent me an email letting me know that a committee of the Gimli Art Club had decided that the newest addition to the Seawall would be a portrait of the Gimli Glider. In her very capable hands, and with full support from her committee, fellow art club members, and numerous people in the community, the unveiling has blossomed into the events that we will enjoy today. Thank you to the Gimli Art Club for enriching our community with your art and your community spirit. And thank you to Dave McNabb for the newest addition to the Seawall. And, of course, a very special thank you to Barb Gluck for organizing this day, a day to remember and celebrate an extraordinary occurrence in aviation history and in Gimli
Glider. So it just became an issue with me that we needed to have something on this wall commemorating this amazing event that occurred here 25 years ago. And being very aware that it was coming this year, Bob told me on the phone that he was basically on autopilot, as he put it. He was doing what he was trained to do to bring that plane in and save those lives. He had control over the plane to a certain extent, but once he got that plane close to the runway and there were 3 young boys out there on bikes that weren't aware of this silent, huge jet coming in, he had no control of them or their reaction. And that became for him the emotional pit for the day for him. And so I said to him, Bob, I haven't been able to establish, have you ever met those boys? And he said, no. Do you know where they are? Find them for me. And they are, 2 of them are here today. Bob was able to speak to one last night by phone. And so it's an amazing day for everybody here. Okay, come on in, boys. Who was 11 years old when this happened. Mark Sue was 14. Cam Berglund is not here today. His father is somewhere in the crowd, and Cam's father is actually the gentleman that has supplied the bike that's 25 years old that I sent Dave over to make sure we had an accurate representation of one of the bikes. So. Okay, we're going to unveil the official Gimli Glider mural as interpreted by Dave McNabb. Directly after it safely landed, and the boys are off safely to the side looking at it, the chutes are not as yet deployed, okay? We wanted to represent a wonderful landing experience in the sense that this is a safe landing. Now, we have we've made copies of this for the crew and the boys. Captain Robert Pearson. Officer and co-pilot, the man who knew the runway was here, Maurice Quintel. Flight Service Manager, Robert Dujardin. Flight Attendant, Danielle Rondeau. Flight Attendant. Flight Attendant Suzanne Jewett. Carrie Seabrook. Art Soup.
Thank you for running us over that day.
Thank you. Oh, yes. My pleasure. We're all on the side.
It's wonderful. It is my first time back in 25 years, and believe me, it's quite an honor to be here.
This is our #1 artist in the Gimli region.
The whole story of whether or not it was prudent to buy a metric airplane at the time came up.
I'm going to get all of them to sign it.
I wish I could get my nerve up to go out there.